Welcome back to another video here on Free Will Photos. Today we are going to explore ON1 again. This time I've actually already made the edit. So I started the edit inside of Lightroom Classic, and that was really just doing some basic noise reduction and cropping, like some really simple stuff. Nothing over the top. Everything that you see in the final photo that's here on the screen happened inside of ON1 for essentially the whole edit. All right. Now, if you want to pick up a copy of ON1 Photo Raw or anything over at the ON1 store, consider using my coupon code FreeWillPhotos20. Now, let's go ahead and jump into it. So because I did the basic tone and noise reduction and things of that sort inside of Lightroom, wow, can't talk today. I'm not going to use Brilliance AI. Now, what I did was I came over here to the effects and I used one of the ON1 styles. All right. If you just want to get something up and running really quickly, these ON1 AI styles, they really do help. And then if you have your own styles that you've trained ON1 to make for you, then it's just going to help you get your edits out a little bit faster. So that's what I went with on this particular image. Now, let me go ahead and build these up for you because I did add in a color enhancer. This is essentially, and I also modified the masks. All right. So we're going to talk about that. So let's just start with the dynamic contrast. Dynamic contrast does exactly what we know it to do. And if you are new to ON1, well, it just adds contrast at the small, medium, and large segments of the pixels in your image. All right. Where those lines would normally be maybe a little hard to distinguish, dynamic contrast does a really great job at finding those areas and then making them a little bit more pronounced. All right. So that's what we have going on here. But what I didn't want is I had it pulled all the way up to 100 when it was originally applied. And I pulled down the opacity. That's what I'm referring to. The opacity or the strength overall of this particular effect was at 100%. I had to pull it down for my own personal taste. And I think that this came out looking pretty good. Now, if I hit the letter O, you can see the mask and it looks a little like jumbled and all sorts of craziness. Well, I had to refine the mask because originally ON1 was just using the radial filter here, which is perfectly fine. But where I wanted to focus my dynamic contrast was really in the area of the bird and things of that sort. So again, turning it off and turning it on. And this is showing weird for some reason because it's showing black. It should be the other way around. In fact, let me click on the mask. Maybe that's why it's not showing. There we go. All right. I had the wrong mask selected. That's one of the challenges with the new version of ON1, knowing which mask you have selected. So it looks like I had the lens blur mask selected just based off of these previews, but that's neither here nor there. Dynamic contrast all over the bird feeder. And then, of course, the bird, I wanted to make that pop. So that's what I did. And that's why I added the dynamic contrast there. Then what I did was I wanted to modify the colors in the image and really just at a global level. All right. But I also wanted to be able to mask it in just a touch and using the same mask as the dynamic contrast. So if I click on this one and I hit the letter O, you can see I used essentially the same mask as the dynamic contrast. Now, you'll see that it looks like a 2-year-old kind of painted in on this area. I was getting some color fringing, and I'll show you that here in a little bit. But what I wanted to do was kind of keep this saturation and vibrance boost that I'm putting over this section of the image. I wanted to keep that from impacting the overall photo. So that's why I went ahead and just painted that away. You can't even tell that there was a color tint change but let me show you how I fix that, because I use a local adjustment. If I hit the letter O, you can see, and let me click on the mask. Got to remember to click on the mask. You can see that I was painting in that exact same area. So if I open this up and turn it off, you can see that there was this green fringe. All right. Now, it was much more drastic when I did the vibrance and the saturation boost using the color enhancer. But what I wanted to do was really get rid of that. So the way that I fixed it is I went ahead and came over to local adjustment, and I just pulled down on the saturation here. So there's still color in that area, but since this is a relatively chromatic, it's like a really, really light brown or light gray, it lends itself well to using saturation with or desaturation technique with a low opacity to get rid of some of that color tint. I promise I can talk. I think I'm just trying to talk too fast, so I'm gonna slow it down. So that's what I did here. Okay, now we're gonna jump back over to the effects module, and I've already gone over the color enhancer. So the next thing was the lens blur. Now the lens blur is really just to help focus the attention into the center of the photograph. I did a pretty good job at getting the background relatively blurred. So if I hit the forward or the backslash key, you can see this is what the photo looked like coming into ON1 Photo Raw. And I promise you the original was just the same because I didn't do anything with the background in Lightroom. All right. Didn't do anything with the background in Lightroom. All I did was noise reduction type stuff. And that gives me that type of bokeh in the background, or that defocused background, which is really, really nice. Little more pronounced than I probably would care for it to be, but I'm not going to be overly picky. But with this, I went ahead and modified the lens blur. And in fact, I could blur it more if I wanted to, but I don't think that really does much of anything for this particular image. So I'm going to leave it about 17. I think that does well. It works for what I wanted. Maybe, you know what, I'll pull down on the brightness. I think that helps with the foreground element here of the bird. And then I don't think the blooming is going to do us any good. So we'll leave it at that. All right. And so after the lens blur, we have another color adjustment. Now this one came with the preset or the AI style. And what it's doing is really desaturating or saturating. I'm sorry. It's making those greens pop just a little bit more. And I'm okay with that. Green and blues, those colors, they actually, I think they're complementary colors. I should probably know this, but they look good together. How about that? Green and blue look good together. So we're going to keep rolling with it. And then the last item here is just a vignette, and that's to really draw the viewer's attention into the center of the frame. Now, what I could do is refocus this and maybe even reshape it. So if I come to feather, make that more harsh, you can see it's just using a radial shape, if you will. And you can change the roundness to make it a little bit more of a square type shape. And then I could pull this in to something like that. And then you pull up the feather again. And, that gives a very different look overall on the image. So I think that could work. Maybe pull the size up just a touch. And then what I'm going to do is actually grab the mask here, and I'm going to go at 100%, and I'm going to paint this away from the bird feeder because I don't think I need the vignette coming through on the bird feeder. So everything else around it can be dark, but let's keep the bird feeder kind of bright. So we'll do something like that, and I think that looks pretty good. So if I turn this off and turn it back on, I now have a completed image. So let me know what you think about this photo in the comment section. And, you know, I talked about AI styles inside of the quick edit last week, but I really do use these often. I was just working on this image and said, you know what? I want to get a quick edit out. So I went ahead and threw on one of these AI styles. And really within maybe 5 minutes, I had a look that I could go with, or that I could go for, after modifying some of the mask, as I just went over and showed you, and then fixing that color fringe that I was running into, or that color issue, we'll just call it that I was running into. So if you found value in the video, then you already know, hit that like button. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. If you got questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below, and I will be more than happy to get back to you and answer the question if it's something that I can't answer. With that, until next time, I want you to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.